Welcome to our fourth annual Read-a-Thon. It is our fundraiser. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. And today I'm super excited that we have Janice Dean with us. Everybody say hi to Janice.
Hi.
Yeah. Some of you might recognize Janice because she is, what do they call you? The weather machine at Fox News.
Janice Dean, the weather machine. Yep. And
I love it.
I'm a broadcast meteorologist.
Broadcast meteorologist. That's a hard one to say.
It's a hard thing to say.
Yes, yes. But you're also an author, and that's why you're here today, because you have not only the two adult books that you have behind you, which are, yeah, I Am the Storm, yeah, and Mostly Sunny.
And then I also have another one called Make Your Own Sunshine.
And I love them. They're and for any of the adults and teachers that are watching, or anybody that watches this afterwards, they're so positive. They're just such good stories that I think anybody would love to pick up the book and read. So I highly recommend them.
Thank you.
But today we're here because we got Froggy, right? Froggy the Weatherman.
Yes. Freddie the Frogcaster.
Freddie the Frogcaster. Freddie the Frogcaster. And so you have how many of those? How many books?
Five.
Five.
I've got Freddie the Frogcaster, which was the first book. I have Freddie the Frogcaster and the Flash Flood. Freddie the Frogcaster and the Terrible Tornado. Freddie the Frogcaster and the Big Blizzard.
Yes.
And then the one we're going to read today, which is Freddie the Frogcaster and the Huge Hurricane.
Yay. So I am going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to step off. I'm going to shut down my video, and I'm going to let you read. And I'm going to share your book so that everybody can see the pages while you're reading along. So I think that that will go well for the kids. When you're done, I'll hop back on and we will take some Q&A. So if anybody has questions when you're reading your book, the teachers can put them in the chat and we can answer those questions when we come back on.
That sounds amazing.
Perfect. I will be back. I'm going to stop my video right now, and then I'm going to share my screen.
All right.
I am here.
There it is. Okay, it's Freddie the Frogcaster and the Huge Hurricane. And then after we read the book, if we want to talk about how a hurricane forms, that would absolutely be awesome. So here we go. Summer break, Freddie cheered as the last school bell rang. What's your forecast for summer vacation, Freddie? Gil Flipper asked. Pond diving, frog surfing, and lots of weather watching, Freddie answered. With no school, Freddie also had time to spend at the Frog News Network. First thing the next morning, Freddie was outside checking his weather clues. Light wind, low humidity, and clear blue skies. Perfect beach weather, Freddie said. I hope it stays like this for our trip to the shore next week. Meanwhile, Freddie had plenty to keep him busy. He headed back to the house for breakfast and chores. Then Freddie was off to help Sally Croker and Polly Woggins at the Frog News Network. Sally welcomed Freddie with big news. It's time for you to learn how to report the weather, she said. You mean on TV? Freddie asked in a shaky voice. Weather watching was one thing, but talking in front of a camera, that was a different story. Well, this is a television weather studio, Sally playfully reminded him. Maybe later, Sally. I'm on the lookout for hurricanes right now, Freddie said as he studied the latest satellite image. Uh-oh, Freddie pointed to a big swirl of clouds out in the ocean. Is that what I think it is? Let's check it out. Sally pulled up the tropical weather website and said, You're right, Freddie. Hurricane hunters are investigating that cluster of storms. Polly Woggins looked at Sally's screen. Wind speeds are 39 miles per hour. This is the first tropical storm of the season. And look, Freddie said, its name is Andrea. The next day, Tropical Storm Andrea was getting stronger and moving closer to land. Look at the path of that storm, Freddie noticed. It's headed our way. Polly read the weather report. Wind speeds are up to 74 miles per hour and the barometric pressure is dropping. That's a sure sign the storm is getting stronger. This isn't a tropical storm anymore. Andrea is now a hurricane. It's time to warn everyone. Sally hopped into action and went live with a frog news alert. A hurricane is making its way toward Lily Pad. We need to get ready and be safe. Freddie hurried home to help his family. Along the way, he noticed that Lily Pad was getting good at preparing for bad weather. After all, they'd had a lot of practice. First, it was a thunderstorm. Then there was a blizzard, and now a hurricane. Looks like the whole town is ready, Freddie, Mr. Fly Swatter called out. My hardware store has sold out of plywood and flashlights. You're just in time to help, Freddie's dad said. We've already put the lawn furniture away. The last thing we need is a lawn chair rocket flying around in hurricane winds, Freddie's mom explained before heading off to the grocery store for supplies. While his dad finished securing the windows, Freddie got busy putting together their hurricane emergency kit. The next morning, Hurricane Andrea was right on track. Winds were getting stronger. Dark clouds were rolling in. The barometric pressure was dropping even more. This huge hurricane was on the way. Inside the news station, everyone had a job to do. Polly was going to broadcast live from outside. Sally would stay inside and report on the hurricane's path, radar, and satellite images. What about me? Asked Freddie. Freddie's job was to watch the latest bulletins from the Hurricane Center and help update the weather graphics. Across town at the Frogatorium, the mayor was greeting families looking for a safe place to stay. Welcome to the strongest building in Lily Pad, he bellowed. We'll all be protected. When he saw Freddie's parents, the mayor winked. I heard Freddie is on the job. I know he won't let us down. As Polly was outside reporting, a big gust of wind swept her off her webbed feet. This is Polly Waggins live outside the Frog News headquarters. Hurricane Andrea has arrived and... Whoosh! In an instant, she was soaking wet. She hung on to a nearby sign to steady herself. Yikes, she yelled. No frog should be out in this. After a while, it got really quiet outside. The wind died down and the rain tapered off. Phew, it's not so bad now, Polly reported. Polly has been out there long enough, Sally said with very concern. The eye of the storm is passing over Lily Pad now, and the backside of the hurricane is going to hit in full force. I have to get her inside now. But someone has to give the weather update on TV to warn all the frogs, Freddie suggested. You're right, Sally said. She handed him the microphone. It's time you do your first frog news alert, Freddie. The words on air started flashing before Freddie got the chance to get scared. He stood up tall, looked right into the camera, and then he did what he had seen Sally and Polly do so many times before. This is Freddie the Frogcaster with breaking weather news, he said, and pointed to the satellite image behind him. This is Hurricane Andrea. The eye of the storm is right over Lily Pad. It may be calm and quiet right now, but don't be fooled. This hurricane isn't over yet. Freddie cleared his throat. Everyone needs to stay inside and be prepared. Freddie's friends and family shouted, be prepared. They were watching him on TV at the Frogatorium. Go, Freddie, they cheered as their favorite young frogcaster made his television debut. Freddie's parents were smiling proudly when the mayor hopped over. Freddie saves the day again. The mayor had more to say, but whoosh, the wind howled and the rain started pounding again. The hurricane was back, just like Freddie had predicted. Lily Pad was a mess the next morning. Trees were down, cars were flipped over, plenty of roofs needed repair. But all of that could be fixed, of course. The good news was everyone was safe. Freddie was so happy to see his parents. The mayor was with them, and so was his friend Gil. Freddie, Lily Pad can't thank you enough, the mayor said, shaking his hand. Yes, congratulations on your first TV report, Gil exclaimed. And by the way, Freddie, this is for you. The mayor reached behind Gil's back and pulled out a long, flat package. It was tied with a big red bow. A frog board for our beach trip, Freddie said with delight. And so far, the weather looks totally awesome for surfing. And that's it. But you know what? If you get the book, at the back of every book, let's see if I can have the hurricane. At the back of every book, we have lessons about what you just read. So for instance, you can read about what is a hurricane, and it will tell you. You can read about the hurricane structure, like the eye of the storm and the winds that go counterclockwise. It also gives you the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is how we rate hurricanes from an from a category 1 to a category 5, and then also gives you some ideas of how to prepare for a storm if a storm is coming your way. So that's what I wanted to do with Freddie. The Freddie series is not only tell the story, but also have the meteorology if you wanted to dive a little deeper.
I love that. There's so many lessons in this, about all them gathering together, doing the right thing, listening to the weatherman and weatherwoman, and saying, listen, this is because a lot of things are preventable if you just listen, right? And you'd be prepared. So there's so many lessons in it in that respect. And then there's the scientific lessons, the meteorologist suggestions. So that is fantastic. I love Freddie. I mean, and it's his first time newscasting. So that was pretty cool.
Yes, I mean, that's a big deal, right? I wanted to talk about being in the business of broadcasting, and sometimes you got to do something that you're a little bit afraid of. But if you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
Right. And that's, so first of all, I would love to know what made you, clearly this is your business. So kind of that's your inspiration, your idea, but how long did it take you to write this and can come up with the idea?
Well, that's a good question. Obviously, because I've been doing meteorology for a long time now. I've been at Fox now for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, doing the same job. And I always wanted to write a book ever since I was little. I thought I loved to write. I was good in English, but I also was really good in math and science. And so it kind of combined everything together, the meteorology background that I have, doing the weather, and the writing that I also have always loved to do. But I will tell you, getting a book published is no easy feat. And you have to kind of do the research. What I realized was there wasn't a whole lot of weather books out there for kids to learn about what I learned, because meteorology can be kind of tough. It can be, there's a lot of information you have to learn. There's a lot of math and science. And even though it's exciting, it can be confusing sometimes. And if I wasn't a meteorologist as a mom or a dad, if I didn't know about the weather, it's hard to explain it sometimes. So that's what I wanted to do, is write books that are easy to understand for parents and teachers and kids. I wanted to write a cute character like a Freddie. But when I first started thinking about the idea, I came up with a little girl who was afraid of thunderstorms. That was my main storyline. And I found a publisher that liked the idea of a children's weather book, but they didn't necessarily think the idea of a kid who was afraid of thunderstorms was really original, right? And so I have to say, from the original thought of wanting to write a children's book about weather to getting one published like this took 10 years.
Whoa.
It took a long
Wow.
time, but
Wow.
it was a good lesson for me because I had a lot of rejection. I had a few publishers say, we like this, but we're not sure. Maybe you should think about it being an animal character. And so I got a lot of those rejection letters saying, try again, try again. And for a while I put it to the side, but I was always still thinking about it. And then I finally found a publisher that believed in my idea and wanted to help me develop the best story that would, that would make kids excited, that would make teachers excited. And that's how we came up with Freddie. And then I had to find an illustrator. So I wrote the book, but I didn't do the pictures. I had to find a really good illustrator. And that's when I found Russ Cox, who I got along with so well. And we just worked really well together. So I think the moral of the story is, if you really believe in yourself and you really want to do something, never give up.
Nope, that right. At first you don't succeed, try and try again.
That's
And
right.
what I also liked in what you just said is that you found somebody who believed in you and kind of helped you to develop. Maybe if the little girl wasn't the right way, it helped you to develop, which is much like the teachers that are on this webinar. You know, they're there to help the students, and they're your friends, they're your publishers, they're your people that are just going to lift you up and help you along. So
So
if you
important in life.
if you're struggling, ask for help, and your teachers are there to help you. So I love that story. So it took you 10 years and you never gave up. That's
I never gave
incredible.
up. Yeah.
That's incredible. And from you have another one that you're looking to do, right?
Yes. So I have been thinking about doing two Freddie books. One of them has to do with other animals in the forest that might also do the same thing as Freddie.
Oh, I
And
like that.
Freddie doesn't realize that there are other animals that do exactly the same thing he does, forecast weather. So that's an idea that I've had for a while. And I'm thinking about calling it maybe Freddie the Frogcaster and Friends.
Hmm.
And then the other book that I've been thinking about, and tell me what you think of this one, is Freddie helping Santa Claus deliver presents in a big storm.
Love it. I love that. I love that because listen,
Right?
sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate.
Santa's got to
So
get there somehow, and he's
he
got to know where
does.
the bad storms are.
I love that idea. I love that idea. How long from like, I know it took you 10 years, but now once you're into it, how long does it take now that you know you have the concept? How long does it take from starting it to writing it? That's one question.
No,
Hmm.
that's a good question. It really depends. So I know the idea. I've written down what the concept is, right?
Hmm.
Freddie is going to help Santa. So I know what that's all about. And I kind of write out I think the storyline is going to go. Like, it's got to start out where Freddie is, and there's got to be something called a conflict, right? What happens? Well, it's a big storm that could affect Christmas.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. How is Freddie going to deal with that, right? And then
Hmm.
the end, what happens? Do the presents get delivered? Do some not get delivered? Like, so that's how I sort of formulate it in my head. I write what we call as a draft. So I just sit there and type out like all of my ideas of what I think is going to happen. And then the editing process comes in. And that means I edit myself. I realize how many words I should have in a book like a Freddie the Frogcaster. And so I edit myself. And then I also have somebody who is also an editor who will come in and then help me sort of whittle it down a little bit more. And then
Hmm.
that's where Russ, the illustrator, also comes in and sees what I have written and then starts brainstorming about what he's going to put on the page to really tell the story in pictures.
So out of the gate, it's never really perfect, right? You're
Nope,
never, no.
never
So,
perfect.
and that's the lesson we keep hearing this from after author and author is that, you know, you're not perfect and you always have to keep trying and rewriting and making it right. And you also have to ask for help because
Yep.
some people, you know, you need those second set of eyes or third set of eyes looking at it. So those are really good lessons for the students who are paying attention today is that, you know, it's okay not to get it right the first time.
Yeah. And you know what? Another good lesson is even when I read the book, I think to myself, wow, I could have written that better. So it's almost like you have to accept that that's the book that you wrote and it's going to be sometimes still imperfect, but that's the way we all are, right? We're never perfect, never, ever, ever. You can go through a million edits and it's never going to be absolutely perfect.
Yes, agreed. And so you didn't illustrate, you didn't do the graphics. You had someone, you had a team member that helped you with that. How was working with the illustrator on getting it, you know, was it what you thought it would be? Because a lot of times they're saying it's even better than what you thought it would be.
Better. And I think you really have to put your trust in your illustrator, right? Because you write the words, you have an image of what you think, but Russ really brought Freddie to a new level. I never thought he would look that wonderful, or even
Mhm.
you have an idea of what Polly Woggins is going to look like, or Sally Croker. And so I think, he just made me better with his illustrations. And
Wow.
we would have conversations. The other thing is he's got to also be able to take some criticism as well. Like,
Hmm.
because I know the meteorology, I would say, well, Russ, that a hurricane doesn't really look like that. You've got to make it sort of, this way, or, before the hurricane becomes a hurricane, it's a tropical storm. It's kind of like a blob that out in the ocean, and here's what radar looks like, and here's what satellite imagery looks like. So, he's got to be able to sort of get into my world to interpret what I do. So it's really a collaboration. It's really a partnership of people that want to, be better for the other person, right? Like, he's going to make me better. I'm going to make him better.
And if you're not sensitive, you have to let that go. And it's hard to let that control go. But if you're able to do that, then that is, it just makes it better for everybody. I always say teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yep,
So
it's very true. Yep. And it makes you a better person.
Is there something that you do for like when you can't write, you have a deadline or you have something going? Is there like something that like any kind of ritual or something that you go through if you have writer's block? Do you have any advice if somebody's struggling writing, like, any ideas, thoughts, if somebody's struggling writing a paper at school or something?
I think for me, it's always helpful to talk it out. Like I talk it out with my boys, I'll give them an idea of somewhere I'm having a stumbling block, or I'll talk about it with my husband or my friends or my editor or my illustrator. So I like to talk about it. Like, here's where I'm going with this. What do you think of this idea? So for instance, when I told you what the 2 Freddie books are coming up, we had lots of discussions at the dinner table about what the book was going to be. And I wanted everybody's input. So you're always going to have those moments where you're like, I'm frustrated. I don't know if this is the right way. The other thing that I also like to do is just put it aside for a few minutes, right? Sometimes if you focus on something too hard, it just makes it worse. It's almost better if you just like clear your mind. And I like to go for a walk. I go for a walk. I listen to music. I just get my mind off of what I am doing for the moment. And then I can come back. And sometimes I have my best ideas in the morning. Like sometimes I'll just be like, you know what, I'll deal with that tomorrow. And I'll wake up with a new idea. My best advice is don't leave everything to the last minute. Give yourself a lot of time so that you can have sort of these moments where you can take a break, instead of waiting till the very last minute until you've got the deadline.
And a common theme that we've been hearing also is that, if you have an idea, write it down, right? Keep those journals, keep writing those ideas down. And then you can, one of the authors said she wrote it down, something like when her kid was like 5, he's now 25. And it was like 10 or 15 years later that she was like, oh, you know what, this might actually be a book. So keeping a journal. Do you journal? Do you do that?
I do. You know what? I always have a notepad with me, always. Whether it be, a notepad to remind me that I have a doctor's appointment, or a notepad just to write little ideas down. I've always been someone like that. I'm not somebody that inputs it on my phone or my computer. I always have to physically write it down.
That's great. Do you have, switching off the author, do you have any advice about becoming, a meteorologist, or for the kids that are studying today and love the idea of it? Any advice for that?
I think you have to be, you have to have the idea of wanting to, for me, it was being a broadcaster. I knew I wanted to do something. I did radio for a lot of my career, and I loved radio because you're listening, right? You're listening to somebody tell a story, and in your mind, you are setting the stage. You're coming up with your imagination of what the person is talking about, as opposed to actually seeing something on a screen. I always loved that. I love that, you could listen to somebody's voice and make up your own image of what the scene was like, or what the person looked like, or what the thing was. But I got into weather because I was working at the radio station part-time, and I was doing a lot of some of the events that they would have, or they would have telethons. I don't know if the kids know what the telethon is, but to raise money for something on TV, right? They would always send me from the radio station to talk, to go on television to talk about what I do for a living, or the place that I, work at. And the news director there said, oh, you're good on TV as well. Maybe you should come in and be a reporter or something. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And then one day the meteorologist that was working at the local TV station, he was going on vacation and they didn't have anybody to fill in. So the news director said, "Hey, you want to come in and do the weather?" Now, listen, that was 30 years ago when you didn't really need the background of the schooling that I had to take. So back then I was a weather presenter. So I would do the 5-day forecast. I would be on television and somebody else would do all the weather maps and stuff for me. So, but when I came to Fox and they were looking to kind of put me somewhere, they asked me if I ever did weather before. And I said, well, I used to do it part-time. And that's when I realized that if this was what I was going to do for a career, I would go back to school. So I went back to
Wow.
school while I was working here. And that's another good lesson is you're never too old to learn something new or go back to school.
That's a great lesson because I did not know that. I thought that that was something that was your path that you decided to do.
No.
So you kind of came about it like, circumventing other stuff and getting to it.
Yes, and you
Um,
know what? I always loved, like I said, math and science, and to go back to school and sort of revisit those subjects that I always knew I was good at was pretty awesome. So I just learned to really love what I do. And I think I even love it even more because working at a news station, the news can sometimes be a little, not so nice. But
yeah.
then they go to me and I'm like, it's really sunny out today, nice forecast. I get to like sort of, I don't know, you take a break from all the bad news, right? To talk
Yeah.
about the weather.
Yeah. And yours is like reality. How long did it take you how long is the schooling to become a
It took 3
meteorologist?
years. It
Oh,
took 3
wow.
years. Yep.
Wow. Wow. And that's so impressive that you stuck with it. And as you get older, you realize the things that you learn when you're younger, they're really important. You might not realize it while you're in school today, but
Very true.
it's important and you're applying what you learned when you were younger on top of what you went to school with. So that's really it's an important tool and an important lesson. Never give up, right?
Never give up.
You're a great example of never give up.
Thank you.
How did you celebrate your first book?
It was very exciting. I guess that's a good question. I don't even know. Some people have book parties. I never really had a book party. I just was very excited about a dream coming true, and to be able
Mm-hmm.
to share that dream coming true. I think the greatest gift was, being able to um, write a dedication to my kids in my book,
Mm-hmm.
that was the celebration. Um, to be able to give my mom a copy of my book, something that
Mm-hmm.
always was like a dream come true. Every book that comes out is exciting. But I think, you just celebrate with your friends and family. That's how I do.
Yeah. I usually ask people, what did you do with your first check? Because for some people, they're like, well, this is exciting. I finally made it. I'm going to buy something good, something big or something like that. But
Well, I guess another thing is that writing is really has to be a passion because
mhm,
there's not a lot of authors that make a lot of money with writing
yes.
books, like
Yeah.
for me it's a part-time job. I don't know that I could really make a living just writing books. There are very few
Mhm,
authors out there that can say that they really made a lot of money off of their books. I think
yeah.
most authors you will talk to will say it's really a passion of theirs and it doesn't matter if you hope that it can make some money,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah.
And you exude sunshine in everything that you do, and your books are great examples of that. And I think we have 13 classrooms on our webinar today, so we will get a list of the teachers that are on here, and you're generously going to give a book to each of
Yes.
the classes, correct?
I am. I got all of these Freddie the Frogcasters for every classroom.
Awesome. And we will facilitate getting those to each individual teacher. I want to thank you so much for your time here today. You were terrific. You've been a great supporter of our mission. We're going to be distributing our 4 millionth book within the next couple of weeks. 4 million books in 11 years. So
Oh, that's so incredible. Well, congratulations. You're doing such amazing work.
thank you so much. We're excited. Our goal is to ascend to 1 million books distributed a year in the next 5 years. So we're grateful for your time and dedication, and your talents. You know, it's, you provide a great opportunity for children to have a fun way to learn about science and weather. And we appreciate your time here. And thank you for being a part of our fundraiser. And I have to thank Amazon and Jovia Financial, because they've actually been our literacy leaders and our page turners for this fundraiser. So thank you so much. We hope you'll come back and visit with us.
Oh my gosh, I would love to. I hope I'm part of the Book Fairies family now.
You are. I'm going to have to come up with something like you do for your podcast. Everybody's going to become part of something. I'll come up with that. But
Okay,
you're a
good.
part of our, I always say once you're in, you never get out. So we don't really let you out. So
I'm in for
thank you.
whatever you need me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and have a very sunny day.
Oh, you too. You too. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.